In this video, we discuss 10 little-known retirement facts that are really important. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
If you look at the standard sources of retirement information, you'll probably see the same 10 topics discussed over and over again from a slightly different perspective depending on the author. But there's so much more to retirement information than what you read in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. Don't misunderstand me, that information is very important, but it's also quite well traveled. In this video, I'm going to astonish you with 10 little-known facts and data points of information about retirement that will be very useful for you and impress your friends and family at dinner parties. I want to make sure that you make it all the way to the end, so I'm going to move through each of the points very quickly. I'm going to explain what it is, why it's important, and what you need to know about it, and then move on. I'm also going to try to do this in 5 minutes or less. All right, let's go. Point number one, the retirement community is growing at 3.5% per year. According to the Administration for Community Living, a government entity dedicated to the development of local communities, there were 54.1 million retirees 65 and older in the U.S. in 2019. This is up from 34.6 million in 2009. And for reference, the 65 and older community is expected to reach 80.8 million in 2040 and 94.7 million by 2060. This is important because we often talk about how the Social Security Trust is going to be depleted by 2034 or 2035, but very little, if anything, is said about the explosion in the 65 and older community and the infrastructure needed to service that community. Everything from healthcare to housing will feel the pressure as Gen X moves into retirement in earnest, which is in about 5 years. The next point is that approximately 80% of American retirees never actually leave their state when they retire. And judging from this channel's best places to live in retirement videos, you would think that that community is quite large. But the fact is, it represents a very small percentage of the overall retirement population. But according to FedWeek, 50% of those that don't leave state never actually leave the home that they owned in their 50s, and the balance only leave that home when their health requires them to do so. This means that there's no pressure when it comes to moving to greener pastures because the vast majority of people don't actually make that move. Point number three, over 1/3 of retirees live on Social Security alone. In fact, that number is closer to 40%. The fact is, those that are living on Social Security alone tend to be in the bottom third of the earning scale, which also means that their Social Security payment tends to be less than the average Social Security payment. This staggering statistic means that there are a lot of people that need help making ends meet on a day-to-day basis. Point number four, poverty is getting worse for retirees. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2021, 10.3% of retirees lived in poverty. In 2020, that number was 8.9%. One can attribute the large increase in that differential to the surge in inflation, but Social Security keeps up with inflation, so why would that matter? Well, this is because the Social Security payment is a lagging payment. In rapid inflationary times, you're always behind. For example, your 2021 payment will represent inflation from 2020, and your 2022 payment will represent inflation from 2021. For those of you that receive Social Security, you'll know that your cost of living adjustment in 2023, January 2023, your payment went up 8.7%. This means that inflation in 2022, at least from October of 2021 through October of 2022, was approximately 9%. Yet the retiree had to wait over a year to receive that increase. Eventually, this catches up when inflation slows because your cost of living adjustment is higher from the previous year and you're using that in the current year. And this fact might be the case here in 2023. The inflation number in March of 2023 was 5% annualized. Point number five, your family responsibilities may not end when you go into retirement. When we start out in our work life, we have big dreams for our future. And with focus, hard work, and maybe even a little bit of luck, we achieve most of those dreams. But unfortunately, not everybody has the focus that we do. And those that are lacking in focus, or maybe even just luck, end up requiring us to help them help themselves many times when we're in retirement. Often we can't control what others do and how they focus their lives. And unfortunately, when this happens, we may need to provide support to other people. This is particularly true when it comes to family members. This is difficult when you're working and even more difficult when you're retired. Point 6 is that your standard of living will probably change, and that's okay. This doesn't mean that you won't enjoy yourself in retirement, but what it does mean is you'll probably live life less large than you did when you were working. In fact, people with a lot of money generally don't live life as large when they retire. When we're working, we provide a life for those other than ourselves oftentimes, and that life requires us to provide them with access to a lot of things that we wouldn't normally have access to or want in retirement. Think about it like this. Many of you wore a suit when you went to work. Others wore nice clothes. Others wore uniforms. But whatever you wore, that wardrobe cost money. Now, today, you don't need to own nice clothes like that. Not because you can't afford it, but because you don't need it. So in that instance, you're not living life large. Multiply that by the car that you drive, the size of your house, and other accoutrements that come with working full-time and raising a family, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. In short, you're not paying for a lot of things that would be called quality of life when you were working, but then again, you don't have to. Point number 7, your retirement portfolio is not keeping up. Until recently, we only experienced one side of the equation when it came to investment performance, and that was the market movements up and down. Inflation was not part of our equation when we thought about our spending power. What we thought about was what happened to our investments that year in the market. Yes, there were good years and there were bad years, but the cost base was always predictable. Then in 2021, that all changed, and we started hearing terms that our parents used when we were growing up, like runaway inflation, stagflation, and another half dozen terms that have been put to the side for the better part of 40 or 50 years. This retro set of terms now makes it obvious that we need to think about two sets of variables, not just one, when we think about retirement and spending in retirement. As I film this video, inflation has come down to 5%. Not where we need to be. Sub 3% is a much better number, but certainly much better than 9% or circa 9% in October of last year. Point number 8, most retirees have not budgeted for travel. It may surprise you to know that when most people think about retirement, they think about the travel that occurs in retirement, yet most people haven't actually figured out how to pay for that travel when they've set up their retirement budget. According to a Merrill Lynch study, about 2/3 of retirees age 50 and older have said that they don't know how they're going to pay for the travel that they want to do in retirement. This issue can actually be for a couple of reasons. One is that maybe they don't think about travel or paying for travel in the never-ending summer of retirement. The other reason is that they know that they'll have the advantage of traveling off-season, odd days of the week, and other pre-planning options that allow them to save a lot of money in travel, so therefore it's not top of mind for them. But whatever the case is, 2/3 of the community that's going into retirement or in retirement has not figured out how to pay for the travel that they want to take. Point number 9, over 35% of retirees still have a mortgage at age 65. According to the survey of Consumer Finance, over 35% of people aged 65 to 74 still have a mortgage. This could be for a lot of reasons. Probably one of the biggies is that low interest rates means that paying off your mortgage early is less of a necessity. Also, as people progress in their careers, they tend to trade up in the size of their homes, and oftentimes, whether they intend to or not, they reset that 30-year mortgage with another 30 years with the intention of paying it off early, but they never get around to paying it off early. And the final and most important point, in my humble opinion, retirement may be bad for your health. According to the Journal of Economic Behavior and Organization, early retirement may lead to early cognitive decline. While this is a new study, it's not something that most of you don't already know. Human beings need intellectual challenge or our brains turn to mush. You don't need a recent survey. This fact has been known intuitively, if nothing else, for centuries. This is why your great-grandparents read books. They read the newspaper. They got involved in everything from religion to community service to charity to politics. To keep cognitively strong, it's also not isolated to people of a certain age group. Take a 20-year-old, put them on a 20-year vacation, and then when they come back at age 40, put them in a job that requires very little other than for them to show up and do manual labor every day, and they would struggle. I'm not talking about a job splitting atoms. I'm talking about a job working the cash register at a retail store or stocking shelves at that store. The easiest way to stay cognitively strong is to work. It may not be the direction of choice for most retirees, but it is one more tried and true way to stay mentally in the game. Now, before you say, hold on, Jeff, I've worked for over 40 years in my current job. I'm not working another day. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about working in your current job. I'm not even talking about working in a job for money. Perhaps working in a charity is the way to go, or simply taking a college class, something that keeps you mentally stimulated, something to think about. If you like this video, check out that video. It's called The 7 Most Important Things to Own in Retirement. It's one of my most popular. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.